Okay, afternoon everybody, and welcome to the Ergo webinar on how to use Microsoft Teams and working from home with crisis management. So essentially we're going to go through a few different areas. My name is Steve Blanche. I'm the CTO here in Ergo. And we're going to go through what is Microsoft Teams, how do you use it, how specifically do you use it around this time of crisis management with the COVID-19 pandemic. So extending into that, we're going to get into a crisis management platform. So there are crisis management templates that have been issued by Microsoft to help organizations manage this crisis in organizing staff. Obviously, Teams is in big demand. People want to work from home and be productive, but also how do we manage, communicate out, get feedback back in, organize people and so on through this crisis. And as I say, there's a crisis management template that has been put together for this that will show you how it integrates with Teams and how it's used. And then essentially, because Teams and obviously the crisis management template are going to be new ways of working for a lot of people, training is particularly important. So we, as Ergo, we implement Microsoft Office 365 and Teams and so forth quite a lot through lots of different organizations, literally tens of thousands of seats. And we have discovered through experience that they are most successful when you implement business change management and user adoption, which is usually focused around training. So getting communication out as to how this is going to affect you, how you can now work effectively through this medium, and then showing you the tools of how to use this medium. That's definitely the most critical factor in getting people to successfully use these tools. We also bring a lot of experience around putting governance and security around these tools, because you can absolutely stand them up, and we're going to show you pretty much how easy they are to use and get in place. And there's lots of organizations that are that have their own internal IT teams that can spin up their own tenancy and get this stuff done. And we just want to show people that you can definitely do that yourselves. We just want to show you then what you can do with the platform once you do that, or obviously we can help you spin it up as well. But training and business change management is a key piece on that. So Daniel Carroll will be showing you the training portal, and Dani Spenceley will be going into the business change requirements. So obviously home working is one of the key phrases that customers are searching for on the internet now through Google, Bing, and so forth. Obviously, that's because of this crisis. Meetings and travel, a lot of it's all been cancelled. So we're all looking at virtual meetings because of the restrictions that are in place. Offices are closed. I know our offices in East Point here in Dublin, pretty much empty at the moment. We've got two offices, Block E and Block T in East Point. And Block E, Block T is now, we've just taken advantage of the vacation of bodies from that office to accelerate the refurbishment that's going on in there, because we just don't want people in those offices. And then people quarantined, obviously a rising number of customers affected by quarantine situations. So Teams and remote working and being able to collaborate effectively has just become, I suppose, a must-have. So what I want to do is kick straight into it, get to the goodies. So Microsoft Teams, an overview, and Sean McAvinue is our practice lead in the Office 365 Modern Workplace practice, and he's going to take you through a demonstration of Teams as an overview. If you have any questions, please submit them and we'll look at them. We have a live Q&A currently there, and we'll get to them as quickly as possible. But at the end, I'll come back and see if there's any particular repeatable questions or poignant ones that come out that we need to focus on. But we'll be hanging around after we're finished going over the demos to answer your Q&A. Sean, over to you. We can't hear you, Sean. You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, there you go. Just proves we're live.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. So what I'm going to be doing over the next couple of minutes is bring you through a high-level overview of Microsoft Teams, how you'd use it, what some of the features in there is, and some of the useful pieces of Teams that you can use in your organization for remote workers and collaboration. So everybody should be able to see my screen now. I've got a couple of slides and I'm going to jump straight into demos. Okay, so Microsoft Teams, what is it for people who aren't familiar? Microsoft Teams allows you to communicate more effectively with your team members. So you get your team on the same page in a Microsoft team where they can collaborate and chat, have meetings, call, and have web conferences. It's intuitive workspace creation and management. So it's not just a telephony system. It's not just for video calls. It's not just for meetings. It's an entire workspace solution, and you'll see that when we get into the demos. It's highly customizable, so there's a lot of Microsoft apps available to plug into Microsoft Teams. There's also a lot of third-party apps that we can plug in, which we're going to look at, and allows people to work better together. So you'll see through some of the co-authoring functionality that users can get work done rapidly and remotely, but really drive benefits of the cloud. Global usage of Teams. So this is already out of date. Last week, Microsoft announced their daily active user count for Teams reached 44 million, which was up 12 million in a week. Now, obviously, there's other circumstances which led to that, but highly scalable. A lot of people using Teams, a lot of people having great experience using it. And we can jump straight into the demo to show you some of that functionality. Okay, so for this demo, I'm going to use a Windows Virtual Desktop where we have our Microsoft Teams set up and ready to go. So this is the Teams client for anyone who hasn't seen it. It's quite intuitive, but I'm going to go through each of the features in there and kind of show you some of the cool features and cool tools that you can use. So straight off, you'll see that the Teams client, at the very top, we've got a search bar, and this is kind of the same as any other Microsoft search bar, but really brings powerful functionality across the organization. So you can search for users, you can add bots to use commands, specific commands in there, or you can search for documents. So I'm just going to search for Reece, and I can see Reece Campbell in here. I open them up, and I get straight into my chat with Reece. So recent activity section, this just tells you what you've been doing. It lets you know who's messaged you, that kind of stuff. It's pretty self-explanatory. We can see that I've been working away with Reece here to get this set up. I can see that we've shared a few files together. I can see where Reece will sit in the organization. So this is good if you have a highly disparate organization that needs to know more information around how the business is structured. You can use this organization tab to see exactly who reports to who works on the same team, or see what the gaps are. Okay, we can see recent activity, or we can add into this chat, we can add some third-party apps, and there's a massive list of applications there that can be used. So if there is a service that you use in your business outside of Microsoft, there's a good chance that it's being catered for here. For using a web application that's not catered for here, you can just add it as a website, so you can have it built in. And you'll see a lot of the stuff that's available to me here will be available in the actual Teams as we move on. So our chat section is exactly what it says on the tin. I can jump into different conversations. I can create group conversations. I can call, I can share my screen, I can have a video call, or I can add extra people in here. So a lot of this is kind of mirroring, and if anyone's familiar with Skype for Business previously, or Link, or OCS, if you go back far enough, a lot of this mirroring functionality that's available in there. So outside of that functionality, what Teams brings to the table is the idea and the concept behind Teams. So a team is an Office 365 group. So for anyone that's not familiar with an Office 365 group, it's a group object like your legacy distribution groups, but it has a SharePoint site for file storage. It has a mailbox for calendaring and email, and it has that distribution list functionality as well. So when we set up a team, we give it a name, and under the team we have several channels. We invite our members into the team. So if we look at the members here, we've got quite a few members in there. We can have an approval for people being added. So the owners of that team can manage that. It doesn't need to be managed by the IT staff on the back end. We can add channels, and we can drill through a few settings, such as some of the fun stuff like pictures and memes, emojis, that kind of stuff. But we can also add in applications. We can give members different permissions. So if members can delete messages in the team and that kind of stuff. So when we look at the channels in the team, each of them are going to look quite similar. So we've got a general channel here that's created by default, and this is where we'll have our initial collaboration and communication piece. We've got files, we've got a note, OneNote wiki that we can use to keep track of daily meetings, things like that. Then we create different channels for different work streams under the same team. Now by default, everybody has access to every channel in that team because they're a member of the team. But there are use cases where not everybody in the team needs to see every channel, and that's where Microsoft developed private channels. So private channels logically separate out, even though they're part of the team, they do logically separate out that chat and data storage so that not everybody in the team can see it. We can manage this channel, and we can see that the members of this channel are actually a subset of the team members. And that's really interesting because you have use cases such as project managers, which maybe need to communicate financials and things like that over Teams. And you don't need a new team for that, you just need a private channel. There's no reason that you need a dedicated team for that kind of communication. And this is our standard team that we set up. We can add to it with all those add-ins that I got to earlier. And there's a massive amount of those available. We also have a company-wide team here, Contasso, which is our demo company. Everybody in the organization gets added to this team by default. It has a lot of the same functionality. However, we've put in some custom tabs here for the Crisis Communication app, which Reece will talk about later on, and the training portal that Daniel will get to. Outside of our actual teams, we've got meetings, so our calendar. So for anyone who's not aware, this webinar is actually hosted as a Teams live event. So we can create a live event through Microsoft Teams. We can set up presenters and then send out an anonymous link. We can set up a regular meeting. That's the same as your classic Skype meeting or your meeting that you'd set up in Outlook, that everybody can join at a certain time. We can meet now, which will just spin up an ad hoc meeting that we can then add people into. And we can also, in our team, we can actually create a team meeting. So everybody in the team gets invited to that meeting by default. That way, if your members of your team differ, the meeting will always be there. We can see, we can add add-ins into our actual team client. We can track where our files are. We can make one-to-one calls and one-to-many calls. One thing I want to show you here is that the Teams client itself, although there's a lot of stuff in here, it's actually very similar to the web client. There's very little difference between the two. So if you have a lot of users working from home on their home machines, you don't need to worry about deploying the client unless they want to download it themselves. You can let them use the web client and they get a lot of that functionality anyway. Another thing around securing Teams is by default on all new Office 365 tenancies now, multi-factor authentication is implemented, and we'd be recommending that that's maintained. The reason behind it is as we move to the cloud, we lose a lot of controls we would have had around VPN access, around firewalls sitting in front protecting our network and our users. So we need to protect at the point of authentication. And that's why we would enable multi-factor authentication. And how that looks is your user logs on. When your user logs on initially, they'll get a pop-up to register for multi-factor authentication. They can use a mobile app to the Authenticator app to either get a pop-up on their phone, or they can enter a code from that app, or you can specify that they get a phone call or an SMS message. You can make all those, you can make all that functionality available to them, or you can limit it right down and say people can only use the Authenticator app, for instance. And that's kind of the high-level view of the Teams client. What exactly you can do in here, you can link into OneDrive, Microsoft Teams, as we saw. I'm going to pass on to Reece now to continue on the crisis communication piece. But if anybody has any questions, I'll be sitting around in the Q&A, so feel free to start firing questions in.
Thanks, Sean. Hello, everyone. I'm just going to share my desktop now. So just taking on from where Sean left off, the different clients. So what you're looking at the moment is I'm logged in as my end user. So I'm in that chat that we saw Sean a moment ago. And if I jump over to the teams, so I'm a member of different teams. Again, as Sean was talking about, you can be a member of different teams and channels. What I'm going to be talking about is the crisis communication app that Microsoft has provided as a sample. And what we've done is we've added into this tenant and we've made it accessible in various different ways. So the first way is directly embedded within Teams. So you can see that here. So I've just logged into that there. So it's on the Teams app there as a tab. And I'm now currently in here, and we've got a lot of different functionality and features built into the app as it comes out of the box. And I'll go through these one at a time fairly quickly and then show a little bit more. So there's a share status option here. I'll skip over that for the time being. If we go to the company news, so that the main purpose of this particular app is to, as an organization, allow you to engage with your wider organization, your employees, to share information, any kind of urgent news or anything you need to regarding the crisis and ongoing communication. So company news is the first part of that, really. This just gives you the ability as an organization to post that information out and get notifications out to employees, so we can see some updates that have come through here, and you have the ability to search. But if we jump over to world news, another feature added in, this allows you as an organization to put in an RSS feed, so a feed from a blog or a news source that might be of use to your organization. So in this instance, we're actually looking at the World Health Organization RSS feed. That gives us some details of what's going on in the world from their perspective. So you can see there's quite a lot in there, and it gets updated as and when the RSS feed gets updated. And we have the ability to do a quick search, so that'll search the entirety of the articles that are available there. Helpful tips is exactly that. You are able to put some information there for employees to make use of. So in this case, I've got the link for the multi-factor authentication, so that an employee can go and set that up or change it if needed. When they go into it, you can put in whatever detail you want in there, and you can put in some rich text formatting to put some more information in there, and there's a link there that would take you directly to that. And then there's a frequently asked questions, so you can put in whatever questions you want. As you can see, a slightly different layout, but also gives you the ability to search here. So you can filter that down to what is relevant to you as an employee, and see the details that my organization have shared with us. So moving on, we have links, and this is just direct links. So this could be any kind of links that you as an organization might want to share. It might be, in this case, I've got the Irish government COVID-19 official page. Pop over to that, and that's just a way of getting to those links nice and quickly. Then emergency contacts. Again, the idea of all of this is to get to relevant information as quickly as you can. So in this case, we've got some contact details for a number of different people. They're split by geography. And with it being a communications tool, we actually have the ability as well to directly click and go and make that call. If I had something set up for doing that, it would allow me to do that. And the same thing for my email. I can click on that and it'll pop open my email client to allow me to actually directly send that email, as you just saw there. And the last one, to make a request. For that, I'm going to jump over to my phone. So the great thing about Power Apps and Canvas apps especially is that you can access it from many different clients, and one of the clients available to you is an Android app or an iOS app. So in this case, this is just a standard Android device. And if we have a look at the applications on there, we can see there's the Power App application itself. You just get that from your marketplace and you just log in with your normal organizational details, including multi-factor authentication. And that allows you to run the app from there. I'm going to jump away from there. And what you also have the ability to do is actually link directly to an app on your home screen. And that's what I've done here. So this is going to pop open the Crisis Communication app. And as you can see, there it is. So it looks a little different to what it is in Teams. It's a responsive app, so it fits the mobile client better. What you can see is the same features. So we can see everything exactly the same as it was in there. I'm going to start with a make a request, because one thing that's quite nice about this is, let's say you're working from home, you've got your toddlers running around, it's unusual, maybe they've bashed your laptop and destroyed it. So in this instance, I as an employee can actually use my phone to log in without my laptop to then send this message to a defined team that is dealing with the crisis. And that, through the app, is using Power Automate in the background to automate that notification. So we'll see what that looks like in a moment. I'll submit that. So you can put in whatever text you want in there. The back end for that, we'll get that sent out and we'll have a look at what that looks like from the admin side in just a moment. The other side, which I skipped over earlier, is the share status. The reason I skipped over that earlier is because it's actually a bit more useful on a phone in some ways. It allows employees to actually say where they're working from and when. So whether that's working from home, or you can actually add in multiple categories. So you could say working from a different office maybe, or maybe you're working from a designated backup location. So it might be for another crisis in the future. You can use the same app. So in this case, I'm going to say working from home. And you can set the days that you'll be working from home. So let's say I'm going to work from home all of the next 3 days, submit that. You can configure and enable in the background the ability to actually use the device's GPS to actually store the latitude and longitude of the user as they submit that. So that allows you, from an organizational perspective, to actually then monitor that information on a map. So you can use Power BI to view where your employees are at any one time based on what they've submitted at least. The functionality here allows me to then also select some people to notify of that information as well. So I'm going to share it with my manager. And also through the app, because it's all based on top of Office 365, on top of the Power Platform, this is connected directly to my Outlook. So I can actually set my own autoresponders for Outlook if I want to. And I can do that directly here from this app. That would happen with that configuration there. So that's the end user side of things. That's how, as a user, as an employee, that's how that can be useful to me. Now, if I switch over to my admin, so on the admin side of things, just get the right one. Again, there's another app. It's another Power App, another Canvas app for the admin side, and you can see here the options available. I won't run through all these. It's really just a way of submitting the details for the end user, but there's a couple in here that are quite useful. In terms of the admin settings, so a lot of the functionality is configurable. So we can see in here the RSS feed I was talking about, so you can change that. You can change the notification method, so whether it's email or a Teams notification or a push notification. The push notification will go to any users that have the Power App app installed on their phone and enabled. And you also have the ability to actually turn on and off different features. So maybe you don't care about the world news, or maybe you don't want to have links directly. So you can actually, from this screen, turn those on and off for users. So that's the admin center side. Now, the other thing I want to do in here is do the company news. So if you want to broadcast some information to your employees, you can use this to do that. So through here, we can put in a new post to say, "Stay indoors, please stay inside." and then a little blurb. So this is the details that would actually be sent out to the users as a notification to allow them to follow directly to the news article. So as soon as you save that, it'll kick off the Power Automate flow in the background, which we talked about earlier. There's a few different flows in this, and that will trigger the notification to be sent out to the users. We'll come back to that in a moment. One thing I note on my top left here is I've got some activity. I've just had a chat pop up. We can actually see that. So that's the notification I just sent. You see on the bottom right-hand side there, stay indoors. Come back to that in a moment. The activity that we had before. So let's just have a look at that quickly. So when the user, so I showed you earlier, myself as an end user, I sent that message to the team. That's what happened. So it's posted a message by flow into this channel. So this is the crisis management team channel. This is a private channel that is only open to the members of the management team for the crisis management team. And you can see there, I've got that request that's come through from my user, and I can directly chat or email. I'm going to chat directly with them, and that takes me to a chat directly with that user. So from here, I can then respond. So let's say laptop. No problem, we'll send out a new one. Just send us the old one. The courier will pick that up. So that response has come right back into my end user. So again, I'm flicking over so you can see here, it's my end user account, and I can see that communication as a response. And I would also be able to see that within the mobile app if I had Teams installed in there. And you can see while I'm in here, I'm also in the end user, and we can see the notification of that news. So there's that news update that's come through, say stay indoors. This is the blurb text, and I can click on that and it'll take me directly to that news article for more information within the Power App. And this will actually show the Power App running within the web interface as well. So you can access that Power App directly in Teams, directly on a mobile phone, as well as on a browser, as you can see there. So with that, that's the Crisis Communication app, all based on top of Power Platform, lots of Canvas apps showing there. Hopefully that's been of use. I will pass over to Daniel now to talk a little further on the SharePoint side.
Thanks, Reece. That's great. So yeah, hi everybody. I just want to talk to you a little bit about the training portal. So there's a lot of functionality demonstrated by Sean and Reece. And it's really great, it's really powerful. It's going to help you and your colleagues communicate and collaborate effectively. And let's face it, for a lot of people is a new way of working. So we recognize that there's a lot of stuff in there that people are just not going to be familiar with. So we decided to put together a training portal. It's something that we do for all of these projects, but we've rolled up all of our experience in doing that and what we've seen works well into one that's really focused at addressing the needs of a work from home user or someone who's getting to terms with Teams. So hopefully you can see my screen. No one's shouted at me to tell me you can't. So this is the homepage of a training portal. It's built on a SharePoint site, a communication site. So it's very flexible. You can add to this if you want, but what we have in here is a baseline, which would get your people hitting the ground running so that they can do what they need to do when they need to do it. So this is the homepage of it. It's kind of like the shop front of the training portal. So in this, we're kind of displaying everything that we have to offer, but we also have access to all of this stuff from a navigation. So you don't always have to come back to the homepage. But anyway, I'll run down what's here and then we'll dig into the different areas. So we have a welcome message. So like I said, this is SharePoint. You can put whatever you want in here. This currently just says welcome to the new ways of working training portal, but you can tailor this to suit your company's tone of voice or whatever way you want to position your message or the situation. Over here, I just included another web part which shows time zones. So a common requirement or ask, I suppose, from companies who work with colleagues, or maybe they have staff distributed around the world, is that it's nice to have a reminder about what is the local time in an area, because if everything's going to be remote, you just it's nice to have that awareness of what time it is for your colleague working in New York, say, or Japan, etc., etc. So all this can be configured, or you don't have to have it if you don't want it. I'm just trying to show a bit of flexibility there. But moving down the page, I suppose the the main part of this site, or the most important part for day one, is going to be getting started with Microsoft Teams. So we have a whole section in here about how to do all the things that Sean has demonstrated earlier on, and more, some of the other bits that we didn't have time to show. We also have a section in here that deals with configuring the multi-factor authentication, that security piece that Sean talked about, to make sure that you've got people accessing remotely, to make sure that the right people are accessing and keeping your content and your data secure. We have a section here on the crisis management app. So again, it's a really powerful app, and it'll keep people in the loop in real time. So we have a section here just to show people what it's about, what the functionality is, and how to get the app. And then finally, I suppose kind of least important, but still useful to have, is a section here around the Office, the most common Office apps. And we have learning material in here on how to use the apps themselves. But what's quite useful and relevant to this topic is, because we're talking about Teams and a lot of this is up in the cloud, sharing and collaborating within a document or within a file is possible, and there's some useful information in here on how to do that effectively. So that's an overview of what's in here, right? But let's look at something in a bit more detail. So if I'm a user and I want to learn about Teams, we have this page set up that's going to help them get going. So what we have in here is an FAQ, so they can click this and go to an FAQ, which I'll show you in a minute. And that's a list of some common questions that we usually get and usually answer on these projects. And we're still updating it, and we'll update it more. But that's really handy if someone wants to browse that, if they have a particular question. But there's also a big catalog of training material down here, which is broken up by topic. Now, all these topics are Microsoft Teams focused, and they're like a playlist of subtopics within that topic. So someone will come here and they want to figure out how to do something. They mightn't know exactly what it is or what they can do, but they know the area. So for example, I'm using Teams and I want to, chat or make calls and do that one-to-one communication. I can click in here, and within the same page, we get a playlist that opens up of content that's going to help people do that. So the playlist usually contains a video, as well as some step-by-step instructions on how to do whatever it's describing. This content is curated and maintained by Microsoft, so you don't have to worry about updating this content. It'll be updated for you. You just come in here and consume it, basically. To navigate this playlist, so all on the topic of start chats, calls, and meetings, I can navigate through it in a linear fashion, so go topic by topic by topic. But if I'm looking for something specific, rather than running through each thing in turn, I can click here, and it shows me all of the subtopics that are in here. So if there's something particular that takes my fancy or I'm looking for, I click to it, go to it, learn about it, and then use it. So that's the type of content we have in here. So that was just one section on chats and meetings. There's a section here to cover whatever you need to do. All the functionality is covered in here, and it's extremely useful and extremely easy to get around. So if you don't find what you were looking for in that body of content, you can always click to read the FAQ. And the FAQ, it's just a SharePoint page, but we've structured it in a way that we found works well for people. So basically, we have a question section, and then on the same page, we have the answers displayed beneath it. But we use anchor links or on-page links to get people around it quick, and that's what seems to work well. So if there was a question, is there support for mobile devices like smartphones, or where can I get more information? We have an answer all on the same page. It's all nice and quick. Click down, click up, and get answers to your question. And if you're done here, you can go back to the Teams training and just get what you need. So that's the support we have in there for learning how to use Microsoft Teams. If I come back to the home page, what else we have in this portal is how to configure your MFA, or your multi-factor authentication. So if we click on that, we have a step-by-step guide. And again, we have a page here, and the instructions are laid out. So exactly what you need to do, when you need to do it, what information you need to put in here. We have sections in here, so you could jump down to a section if you wanted. So you've already installed multi-factor authentication, you want to figure out how to recover your account, you can click here and you come down to this section. Again, it tells you what to do, when to do it, and any information you're going to need on that. We also have a downloadable copy of this guide. So if you want to take this copy offline, or someone needs this information but they can't get onto this page, you can get this guide for them and send it on to them. So that's what we have for new ways of working. So if we come home again, you can get around this through the navigation here, but I'm just coming home. So the crisis management app, right? So there's a help section here, and it's geared towards an end user, okay, and their awareness of the app. The app is actually quite intuitive when you get into it. So we just want to create awareness of what you can do in the app. So to do that, we have an introduction section here which calls out the key features. We have a video which explains the app, very much like what Reece showed you there, a demonstration of how it works. We have instructions here on how to install Power Apps, say, on your phone and get the app going on it. And then we just have a graphic here which calls out really quick, it's kind of an at a glance graphic of what the different features are within this app and what they look like, how you can use them. So that'll help get people aware of what this app is and how they can use it. And then the last section down here is if you wanted to learn, say, about Excel. You could come in here, and it's the same format as the Teams training. Pick an area that you want to find out more about, click into it, and then you can navigate everything in here. So quite useful, quite useful. I found a lot of use out of this myself personally, which is great. But that I suppose sums up our training portal now at the moment. That's all the content in here. So it's built on a SharePoint site, so you can add to this if you want. Like I said, this is just a baseline. And one other nice feature about this is, I've said it's in SharePoint, but you might not want to send people to SharePoint. We can go back over to Teams and we can embed this SharePoint site within the general or all company Teams, so everybody can have access to it. So you don't even have to leave Teams to learn about Teams, which is great. You can come in here and it all works the same. You'll click through and you'll get what you need. So that's pretty much an overview of the training portal for now. I'll hand you over to Dani, who's going to take you through some communications and change management. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Dan. I'll just share my screen. There we go. Okay, so we have heard about Teams, how we can utilize it within the organization, and how people can start to communicate and remotely work from home. So I'm going to talk to you about how we implement it. So we will start with with communication. So we need to let people know, you need to let people know in the organization what it is that you're doing and what you're implementing. So your communication needs to let your stakeholders know firstly. So all members of management should know exactly what's happening when, so that they can support their team members. And there should be key messaging around what you want to implement. So currently we're doing a lot of Teams implementations, and we have decided to base the communication around Teams being used for communication and collaboration. So to help people when they're remote working, stay in contact with their colleagues and be able to still communicate and collaborate on work to keep everything moving. And that's working quite well. And what we're doing is a blended approach. So we're using the communication to let people know what's happening. We're sending out awareness comms to let people know this is what's happening, this is when it's happening. We're also supporting all the end users with training. So Dan just showed us the training portal, and that is an awesome piece of training content there that people can go and access at any time that suits them, and they can watch the videos or they can read about it in a time that suits them. So what we've also done to complement that with the implementations we've been doing the last few days is to run webinars. So people learn in all different types of ways. Some people can watch a video, some people need to read something, some people would like to hear it. So we've been running two-way webinars so people can ask questions and really understand what it is that Teams can do for them in their day-to-day. And those have been demos. So we've been showing people in Teams how to use Teams and getting them to interact. So those have worked really well. And we set those up using the communication plan. So there we go. So we announce the activity via email. So we let people know the awareness piece. This is what's coming. This is what we're rolling out. And this is why we're doing it. We're helping you work remotely and staying in touch with each other. We'll email instructions to training materials. So what we've done as well is send invites to webinars, and we've let people know, one, reinforcing the messaging of why we're using Teams, and two, how it can benefit them in their day-to-day. And then we have complemented the webinars with the training portal, and really that's something that can stay there for as long as you like. The FAQs are on there, and what we've done is any frequently asked questions from the webinars we've added onto the training portal, as well as any frequently asked questions that we've come across with all the Teams implementations that we've done. So that's really valuable. And what we do is use a communications plan just so we can monitor exactly who's being told what and when they're being told it, because in order for people to get on board and be able to use the portal, they need to know what's happening and when, and they need to know in advance. So people will adapt to the change better the more warning that we give them. So we would advise a communications plan just to outline everything so you can capture who is getting told what and when. And then if you've got an internal communication strategy, great. If not, fine. It's just about detailing the communication that you're going to use for this implementation. So how are you going to tell people? How are you going to reinforce it? Who are you going to use to send the comms out? So you might have an org-wide communication, and you might ask line managers to back up those messages just to really hit it home so people know we're using Teams now. This is how we're going to stay in touch. And then in terms of the crisis communication as well, so if it's something that you wanted to use, the app, you would need to brief people on this also. So you might want to embed that into a wider communications plan if you're deciding to roll out Teams, or you might want to have a separate one specifically around this area. But we would advise, if you are going to use this, the crisis communication app, to template those comms so they're easily recognizable, so people know this is specific to that app. And then you can transition people over to the app and obviously then use that app for those communications. So just in terms of a recap for what we're planning, so that initial message of awareness, so this is what we're doing, we're introducing Teams, you need to decide who that messaging is coming from. So for org-wide initiatives, the research shows that people like to hear it from a CEO or a leader of the business, and for the personal impacts, people like to hear from their line manager. So depending on the comms, just think about who should be sending the messaging. And then in terms of stakeholders, think about the key roles in your organization and who needs to know first and who can help you implement this change. Essentially, it's a change in behavior and a change in ways of working. So who do you need to support this? And then what training are you providing as well? As I mentioned, we've used a blended approach of using webinars, using the training portal, FAQs, etc., and making sure that we've got a feedback loop so we can answer people's questions and support them when needed. And that's the support that we're providing. So you might have a help desk as well. And what we suggest is, in terms of the how, we would always send people towards the training portal, the how-tos, so they can read through there, the FAQs, so that IT service desks don't get inundated with non-technical questions, and then we just make it very clear that if you have a technical issue, that's when you go to the service desk. So that is a high-level approach of how we would go about implementing Teams. I will pass back to Steve.
All right, thanks, Dani. Let me just take over the sharing. All right. So again, Dani's just gone through obviously the change management piece. As I've said, this is probably one of the more critical success factors that we've experienced in getting Teams actually implemented and adopted and in use for customers. So it's one of the, I suppose, strongest, one of the stronger reasonings behind implementing Teams. Moving on, just to cover some of the questions that come up as well, this has come up quite a few times in the Q&A, is around the subscription. So what is this subscription? How do I avail of it? Is it free? And so on. And it is free. So Microsoft have made it free for 6 months. It's essentially an Office 365 E1 subscription, or if you're in the educational sector, it's an A1 subscription. And that includes the Teams and Crisis Management Power App platform. So that's all part of the subscription. Anyone can sign up to it. Like I say, Microsoft have made it freely available for a 6-month duration. Typically, we would allow, for setting something like this up, typically we'd allow about a week's work. Having said that, I know we just did it over the weekend for the Department of Health, not the HSE, but the Department of Health, the ministerial department itself. You can see all the heads nodding in the background who had to work over the weekend on that. But yeah, it stood up. So training, portal provision teams deployed, people accessing and trained and up and running on Teams today. And that's ongoing because they want more tweaks and more customization and so forth. So this can be done very quickly and is obviously very useful given the dispersity we're all working under now in this situation. Outside of that, the guys have been sharing their demonstrations not from their home desktop, but from a Windows virtual desktop. Yeah, so we have provisioned Windows virtual desktops in Azure. And again, this is something that Microsoft have made available for 2-month trials, and they've made 3K, I think, available for a partner to help you stand it up. So this is for customers or organizations that want to impose a bit more governance and discipline around how people access their environment. It also enables you, it gives you a full Windows 10 desktop, so you can access all of your internal applications and so forth over securely, like you can VPN back into your on-prem data center services, as well as obviously accessing all your cloud services, Office 365 and Teams and so forth. So again, it just gives you that ability to govern and manage the actual desktop that's being used. So they can come in then from any device, a phone, a tablet, home PC, regardless. They're on a managed enterprise desktop environment. I want to give a shout out to Nulia. So Nulia, not part of Ergo, they're another partner organization. Essentially, they provide a monitored training experience in that they're giving a 6 months access to a special edition of their training platform. What it does is it enables you to get your staff to log into this and go through using the platform, Teams and so forth, in setting up meetings, sharing their desktop, communicating, setting up groups, and so forth, being part of teams and collaborating. And it measures their competency and ability to use the platform and basically scores them. It's like a gamification of training. Very useful tool. And again, 6 months free access have been made available by Nulia for that. And then lastly, I just want to recap on Teams, our managed services package. So like I said, we wanted to get this out there for people because a lot of organizations can stand this up themselves. So obviously organizations that can't and need help, and we're here obviously to help you with that. But we provide a managed service around Teams. So we support a lot of organizations in their modern workplace Office 365 environment, which includes Teams. All of these points you can see tech enablement through Teams implementation. Obviously the team can stand up the environment, put the security protocols in place, provision the training portals, the app, the training materials, help you get your staff trained and through the change into working and getting the most value out of the platform. We also would assign a customer success manager typically to help you identify all of those critical areas to see what you need to focus on, where do we need more to help you more and to leverage the best value out of the platform. The platform gives us out of the box insights into where it's being used or not, and then that helps us to get people to use the platform more effectively. So support, we continue to help you adopt Teams, and like the guys have demonstrated to some degree, it is very extensible. The list of apps and add-ons you can incorporate into Teams is quite significant. So we pretty much work our day through Teams. Usage insights, what I said, very effective around how people are using Teams, which areas they're actually leveraging effectively and which areas they're not. And again, this is all our service, like Teams itself and the Microsoft services, is subscription based. It's per user per month. So just wanted to call that out for people. What I'm going to do is I'll leave that slide up there for a second for people that do want to contact us and reach out for help. I'm also going to look back through some of the Q&A now and see if there's anything the guys want to particularly highlight. So just give me a second. One of the questions was, when you schedule a meeting within a team, will team members receive an email notification with the join link and instructions, or does it get created in the team member's calendar without notification? So essentially, yes, it does. It gets created and the team member does get a notification. That it's like any other Outlook calendar event or meeting invite. You get notified that you've been invited to the team meeting, and then it's populated into your calendar if you accept the team meeting. Another great thing about Teams, as opposed to Outlook meetings or Skype for Business meetings, is if I schedule a meeting with a group of people, and I'm then working away, as I've been guilty of many times, and not paying attention to my calendar and what's coming up, I get a pop-up saying that Dani has started the Teams meeting. So I already see now someone's already joined. So it just reminds me that meeting's actually started now, Steve. So stop messing around and start joining the meeting that you scheduled or someone else scheduled. So very useful. Let's have a look for another one. How do you control who creates teams and channels? So you set up governance and control policies via role-based access control, and you limit the users that are enabled to set up teams. So then the team owners essentially govern the team itself and can create channels within the team, and they can be private channels. So generally speaking, you don't want tons and tons of teams, but you can have teams with lots of channels, which is much better. So if you had a division in the organization, finance, for example, you could create the finance team, and everybody in finance is part of the team. So they'll see all the general comms, file shares, general stuff, typically non-confidential material. But then you might have certain channels within the team, payroll, for example, that might contain highly confidential material and people's salaries and so forth. So you want to restrict that down to the people within the finance department who should have access to that only, and not the whole finance team, for example. That people in, I suppose, procurement potentially might not want to see, they might not need to see that, and so on. So definitely very filterable and manageable in terms of security and access control. Let's see, any other ones? I'll open the channel to the other guys as well. If you've spotted anything you'd like to call out in the Q&A.
Question there, Steve, around calendar integration. So I think specifically around if you have non-Office 365 versions of Office running, calendar integration is completely possible. If you have Exchange on-premise currently, you will need to set up a Exchange hybrid. Now this can be done through the Exchange Modern Hybrid Agent, which is quite lightweight and does not require ports open into your internal network. If you are using Exchange Online, then it will be natively supported.
Okay, thanks, Sean. So another question there was, how do we get access to this learning SharePoint site? So, well, we can assist you in provisioning a learning site for your SharePoint online tenancy. There's also, let me show you this. This is Microsoft's online Teams training, Teams video training. As you can see, it's quite verbose. So I'll stick that link into the Q&A channel. But it's very basic and very similar to what Daniel walked through with the Teams demo. So what we found is it is very basic, and typically customers will want a bit more depth in the material. So that's why we have created a lot of the training portals and training content ourselves, in addition to augment and enhance the training that's typically available. Let's see, take one more question. Let's see. There's a lot of questions here. how does the 6-month free option get activated? Do you need to be in the existing Office 365 environment? No, so you don't need to have an existing Office 365 environment. You can spin up the tenancy subscription for you. Just contact Ergo or whoever your Microsoft partner might be, CSP partner, and they can spin up a tenancy. Yeah, okay. We'll leave it at that. Unless anybody else any more they want to focus on? No? All right, all good. We'll leave the Q&A channel open, but essentially we'll end the webinar there. Thanks everybody for attending. I hope you found it useful. Yeah, get in touch if you need our help. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you.